Hello, sir.
Yeah, Taib, how are you?
I'm doing good, sir.
Yeah, thanks.
I hope I'm audible enough.
Of course, I can hear you.
That's interesting. I'm so happy to have you here today. Honestly, discussion as this is meant to take place with the level of food crisis and food insecurity that we have in our nation now. When we look at the current level of food inflation stats on the percentage level, we see that we have over 40% now. So it used to be somewhere around, as of last year, it used to be somewhere around 20 something percent. So it has risen year on year by about 15% and upward. But it never used to be like this before. Let's say about 2015, 2016, then, you know, prior to then, we didn't have any of these. The last time that we had inflation this high was in 2008 during the financial crisis. It was about 6% then, not until 2016 where we had the insecurity mounting. But irrespective of this, with the different factors that are being at play with the food crisis and food security, a lot of people have been wondering the role of extension, because they've been seeing that there's actually a role for extension to play. That what really is the problem is why we want an experience and to come in and help us with understanding what exactly is happening. How can we make sense of this? How can we reposition the system to be effective and responsive so that it can be supportive for farmers, for small scale farming, farming community, farming household, and the rural economy that produce bulk of our food here. So basically, I'll be running through the event of the day so that it helps the audience, it guides them along what will be unfolding today. So one of the mission that we are trying to achieve today is to see that there is a role extension can play in helping to stem our current food crisis and our current food insecurity situation. That's what we hope to achieve today, and we hope to achieve today that people can see, especially extension agents and agricultural practitioners. They can see a role that they can play, maybe by augmenting the extension workforce, or being a value chain participant. They can help to stem the food inflation. Yeah. So basically, I'll just read the timeline of events. So anyone that is with us now, or anyone that is joining us, would be able to follow through. So first of all is that the event is going to last about for 1 hour 30 minutes. So we just want it to be the time not to be too limited and not to be too above, because we know that everyone has one or two things doing. So then we begin with the welcome address, in which I've done here, and what the event is about and seeks to address. I've established that already. So the next line of the event is actually the introduction of the guest. So I'll be introducing our senior lecturer in the house for a lot of people that don't really know. So our senior lecturer actually is a renowned lecturer at the University of Ibadan. He teaches or lectures rather at the Department of Agricultural Extension and Rural Development for some years now. He was my tutor also, actually. From 300 level days, 400 level days, 500 level days, and he has been very impactful in my life and helped me to shape my career path. So, and he has been involved in a number of extension and development programs across the country, with international organizations, private firms, public institutions, in light of the Ministry of Agriculture, ADP Agri Development Program, with the IITA, with the World Bank, yeah, and also within the four walls of the university, that's the University of Ibadan. Yeah. So I will still give him more time to, to introduce himself properly, but just to quickly run through the events of the day so we know how it's going to pan out. And just to inform people about the rules and regulation of today so that it helps to guide the whole event to go smoothly. There are time allotted for people to ask questions. So basically, the whole event is sectioned into two parts, section A and section B. And we are going to take 6 questions and responses from our beloved lecturer. So section A is 3 questions, section B is 3 questions. So at the end of the 3 questions for section A, we are going to entertain questions from the audience. So anybody that has questions to ask, we signify, and then we take up the question. Yeah. So at the end of the second part, the section B is where we open the floor fully for audience to ask questions. Then we can address them robustly. Then we do a recap of the event briefly and share the vote of thanks and farewell. So I would go into the first question of the day, but before Dr. Badiru addresses the question, he's going to give us a brief introduction about himself. So let me just lay out the question. Yeah. What I want to ask is, Dr. Badiru, with the present level of food crisis, we've seen the price of tomato in the market. We saw the price of ram in the just concluded Eid festival. Ram going as much as 600, 900. It used to be about half the price, 150,000, 300,000. But now, it in a case whereby a lot of people cannot afford it, so they are going for the more affordable, goat, chicken, and all that. So, what I want to establish today, right now, I want to ask you is that, does agricultural extension have a role to play in helping to stem the present food crisis and insecurity we find ourselves today? Maybe you can help us with like practical examples for the role extension and importance of extension in this food situation we find ourselves. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much, Taib. It's a pleasure being on your program. I'm particularly happy because this is something that we've been dreaming of, that we'll be having programs like this from some of our products in the department. And it's more or less like a dream come true, seeing you floating this kind of a podcast. Yours is not the only one right now. We have another student of ours that is at, I think, at Ohio, that is also doing the same thing. By the time you were still in school, we had this farmers forum program broadcast that we have on radio. It's like a launching pad for students who desire to do what you are currently doing. And I'm so happy that this is coming from you. Well, by way of introduction, my name is Idris Olabode Badiru. A senior lecturer in the Department of Agric Extension and Rural Development. Like he has said, I have been with the university for I think up to 11 years now. And before joining the university, I worked with a World Bank assisted project known as initially we had the second National Fadama Development Project. Then later on, I moved to the third National Fadama Development Project. Then after a while, I started consulting for some of these national projects as well. I've consulted for appeals. I consulted for appeals. I consulted for the West African Agricultural Productivity Program. I am currently the extension specialist in the ProSiva YAM project of IITA. So, and I still consult for a number of projects within the country. Well, while you were introducing me, you initially said that I teach at UID, but you said I lecture. So I usually prefer the teaching appellation. I like people seeing me more as a teacher than a lecturer, and that is what I believe I do. I even see myself as more of a teacher than a researcher. That's the way I see myself. If it's possible for somebody to be a teaching professor, I would have preferred that line. And I think I can stop at that. Now, concerning the question that you asked regarding the role of extension in stemming the food crisis that we currently have in the country. Yeah, extension has a lot of role to actually play. And I'm always surprised when people start talking about the food crisis situation. They will mention all manners of challenges that we are facing. And only a few of them will mention extension. And that is why we keep having some of these challenges that we're having in the country. Extension is one field that everybody feels that they can do without. And the consequences are what we are currently facing. When we want to look at the role of extension, traditionally, extension is involved in the area of transfer of technology. Transfer of technology, as in when you have innovative ideas on how to move the rural community forward, the farming community forward, the people who serve as the link between the innovation and those that will make use of the innovation are the extension agents. So if the extension system is faulty, it's more or less like we have created a gap between change and its occurrence. Our role as extension agent, in fact, in recent times has expanded beyond transfer of technology alone. We are now involved both in transfer of technology and human capacity development. And when we look at this as a whole, it brings us to some of the roles that we perform in the society. We are in the area, we operate in the area of knowledge management and training. So when there are new ways of doing things, let's take issue of tutor absoluta as an example. Now, tutor absoluta is a pest that is creating problems all over the place for tomato farmers. Now, no matter how good the solution to the problem of tutor absoluta may be, if the people, the farmers who are going to use the solution generated by these researchers, if they are not aware of what they are to do and the proper way to do it, we'll still have the problem. And the people who are supposed to assist them in managing them to be able to know the right thing to do and at the right time to do it are the extension agents. So if we do not have them on the field, there will always be a problem. Another problem we have that has always been a major problem all along, that is issue of post-harvest losses. There are times even when we produce in large quantity, we don't know how to manage this harvest very well, so that for those of you that are based in Lagos, there was a time when you go to Oshodi area before the renovations and whatever, you see tomato, mangoes, fruits rotting away along the rail line because we produce, not that we even produce in excess, because we still have a problem of low productivity. And the little that we even produce, we still don't know how to manage them well. So we, as extension practitioners, we assist in this regard in providing the necessary training for people to be able to do, preserve this very well. Let's assume the food technologists will come up with the best way to preserve some of this produce, but it's the duty of the extension agent to package it in a way that the farmers will understand, the producers will understand, so that they'll be able to make use of the knowledge. So these are some of the things that we do. That beyond that, even the issue of tutor absoluta, for the farmers to notice that something is wrong on their farm and to get the information to the appropriate quarters where they will carry out researches on how to stem this problem. We still act in this regard because we engage the community, we are involved in community engagement. So we see the problems before they start becoming a serious crisis to the community. So because we are always in constant touch with them. So if there is a gap in extension, all of these will continue to be a problem. So we are more or less the people that are closest to those who are producing these farm produce that we all love to have on our tables. So if we are not engaging them properly, we'll continue to have the kind of problems that we are having. But one thing I want us to know is that if we look at the role, the position of extension, we should actually take the driver's seat in managing the extension system. It's actually the state government, because what the role of the federal government is really at the level of policy formulation. And the moment they finish making the policy formulation, as in giving the direction on which they want things to move, where the extension offices are domiciled, just like where the farmers are domiciled, actually in the states, in the local governments. So if they do not key into this, or they do not see extension as something that is needed, or they do not give the prime position that they should give to even agriculture in the first instance, we'll continue to have a problem. And everybody will continue to shout, federal government, federal government, federal government. Whereas it's like backing on the wrong ox, because where we should actually face is actually the states where these activities actually take place. So we have a lot of role to play in stemming this the food crisis that we see. As somebody or as a group of people who serve as who stay in the middle between the government and the people, the research institute and the people, and like I summarized at initially, we are between the change, what do you call it? The inventors, those the researchers, and those who will make use of the innovation, those who will make use of a change at the end of the day. So if we are missing, then there's going to be a problem. I think I can stop here so that you can continue with some of the other questions that you have, or if you have any other, I write that to the question that you first posed.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with many of the points that you've posited, and I think you cover a lot actually. So I'm going to there is a question that is coming after this question that I want to place to you, but to actually know what exactly is the lapses, the problem with extension that makes all these issues keep recurring. But I would like to address some of the points that you've made. Definitely, the extension has a role to play in spoilage and post-harvest losses of produces. Yeah, like you've rightly mentioned, we don't produce enough like we should produce in the first place, and bulk of what we produce is wasted. So one of the issues that we have with food security is not that there is no food at all, but what we produce is not efficiently distributed. Like you have a farmer in like a place in Kano or Kaduna produces, but because he doesn't have access to market information, so he's not able to move his produce to where he can quickly dispose it. So by that way, maybe his produce is left on the farm to rot, or one issue or the other, or maybe started being affected by pests and diseases. That's one part of it. Another part that you mentioned is the issue of state being responsible for extension, it has been this kind of historical argument that who should be responsible for extension, and there's been sort of different arrangements, where we had extensions being organized from the federal level, then it broke out to regional ministry, where we had we had like the director general and the inspector general of the agri ministry. Then it was broke again into the research units being separate and the extension unit being separate. So that's where the break of linkage began between extension and research. Then extension then was broken to the state level, domiciled in the ministry, where the different states have had their own ministry, but extension was given a very small priority. And just placing this for context here. So we'll quickly go to the next question, and then I'll come to the question that I wanted to ask from this response that you gave. Like, I really want you to help us understand the rural economy and the importance of the rural economy. Like, a lot of people don't actually get the essence of the rural economy. They focus more on urban part. Urban is creating most of the employment, most of the jobs and all that. So I just want you to help us understand that what importance does the rural economy has to the national economic growth and development, helping us to establish linkage between the rural economy and security, rural resources, and function of other sectors. The linkage between rural economy, hunger, malnutrition, poverty, and inequality.
Yeah, thank you so much. Nigeria as a country itself is mostly agrarian. Mostly agrarian, not only because we everywhere is we have everywhere is dominated by farmers. That's not what we actually saying, but we have a large rural population that actually has actually been supporting the economy. And if we look at it critically, from what you even said, look at contribution of agriculture to even the gross domestic product of this country. If you look at it, you see that apart from oil, agriculture remains one of the topmost contributors to the GDP. So that is part of the contribution of the rural economy to the larger economy. Now, agriculture provides job for the teeming, for a large proportion of the teeming population. And a very good example of this is what we are currently facing in some of our urban centers. Because of the insecurity that is happening in some of these rural areas, you see that we are having a lot of them being shipped from particularly the northern part of the country. They are being shipped down to, especially Lagos, or your Lagos and the environs. You see them coming in large trucks and with their bikes. All of them are becoming bike riders, Okada men. And in fact, they have a joke that if you see some of these bike men, and you hail them that you are going to a place, the moment you up on the bike, and you're asking him, when did you start riding this? They'll tell you that I just started today. Somebody that is just learning, because he must survive. And these are people who were in the past, they were involved in agriculture in their natural habitat, in their places where they were coming from in the north. And so because they can no longer operate the way they should, they were operating, some of them decided to move down to the urban center because of insecurity, and they are now becoming a menace in an urban center. Apart from that, even if you look at the insecurity itself, some of the former farmers who are involved in production of food, some of them are also becoming recruited by these bandits and these insurrectionists and these insurgents. And because some of these things are happening, you discover that it is fueling the insecurity situation in the country, because those who are supposed to be involved in agriculture, they are already getting involved in these criminal activities. And because of that, it is contributing to what we are currently facing, in that, before we were saying we're not producing enough. The few that we were even producing, they get lost in the area in the area of post-harvest losses. But now we now have a situation whereby those who are even supposed to be producing are no longer there producing. So at the end of the day, we'll be having continuous crisis with respect to our food situation. So, and at the end of the day, we're having more people who are unemployed as a result of their not being able to practice agriculture in some of these rural areas as they were practicing. So you see that part of the roles of the rural economy, part of the contribution of the rural economy to the larger economy, is that it provides us with employment. In fact, it's usually the lowest hanging fruits for any government that comes in. I say everybody should go back to the farm, because it is more or less what everybody considers to be the easiest area to go into. So it provides employment to a lot of people. Then I think you should remember that when you were in school, the motto of NAS then was that if agriculture remains stagnant, industry will not grow. Because yes, agriculture actually provides the raw material that feeds into these industries. And it's because we are not producing enough. Because if we're actually producing enough, there will have been some industries, agro-based industries, that will have sprung up as a result of our large of our high productivity. That is the natural trend of development all over the world. You produce in excess, and because you produce in excess, you are thinking of how to manage the excess. Because of that, you start creating industries that will help you to start taking care of those excesses. The same way, you're having issue of post-harvest losses. You start thinking of how in the process cottage industries will start springing up and what have you. So this is another area that the rural economy contributes to the larger economy. It drives the industry. I served as I do that a lot. I do that as a lot. I served as a rapporteur for a particular forum. I think it's the Sir Ahmadu Bello forum. It looks at issues relating to the North and Nigeria generally. So I served as a rapporteur at a particular point in time. And a particular guy came and made a presentation. I love this presentation so much. So I now moved close to him. And when we were discussing, he told me that there was a time he was in Saudi Arabia, and they gave him this pineapple. And when he looked at the pineapple, he tasted it. He said, this is not pineapple. It's not tasting nice the way our pineapple tastes in Nigeria. And these people said, oh, you mean it? You mean your pineapple is tastier? And I said, yes, it is tastier than this. And the next thing they said is, will you be able to provide us with this, your tasty pineapple? I said, yeah, of course. And this guy was given a contract to supply, I think, thousands of tons of pineapple. He could not meet up with the order, because he tried to aggregate, because when you want to do things like this, you want to make sure you do the sorting to make sure that it is the exact specification that you are given, that you gather together. He could not meet it. He tried to deviate from even the specification to at least aggregate whatever he could aggregate. He was not able to meet the order. What I'm saying essentially is that we are still not producing enough. We are still not producing enough, because we have a population that is so large that it's not even enough for us to consume. Talk less of what we now have to be sending abroad to make a foreign exchange. So that is part of it. If the rural economy is actually productive, it's going to boost so many things. And it will assist us in retaining some of our youth in the rural areas, so that the urban centers will not be overcrowded the way it is. So I think these are some of the importance of rural economy to the national economy. You know, even the issue of hunger and what have you. Yorubas will say to be so you can imagine the coping mechanisms that many of us are using now, that we're having issues related to that we are now having a food crisis in the country, because you know that as long as you can cultivate a little thing in your household, it will reduce what you are going to spend eventually on food. So if the rural economy grows, the larger economy will also grow. So that's the way it contributes to the larger economy.
Thank you so much, sir. That was really, really insightful. And someone told me, I think someone did not tell me, I had it from somewhere, that the problem of insecurity that we have today is actually rural insecurity. Yeah. When you look at it, the bandits, they are paying more than what the jobs the rural inhabitants would normally find. So now we are even talking about the minimum wage. The minimum wage is it less than $1 or less than $2? You know, we keep saying that, how are people going to make a good living standard with such amount here? The other thing that you mentioned is actually very true. You know, the rural economy or the rural remote regions actually produce resources and power industries and other sectors. Like, let's just take example of cassava, of which we are actually not also utilizing that properly. Yeah, cassava, you know, you get the animal feed from it. You know, you get gari from it. You get fufu from it. You get ethanol used for industrial process. You know, starch. You know, thickener. You know, you get cassava flakes and all that. Yeah, but those things, they all have different values in dollars when you calculate all that, and that's part of it. Although we are not utilizing the cassava very well,
Yeah.
what we utilize most from cassava is the gari, and gari has the least of the earnings when you look at the earnings compared to the ethanol, the animal feed, and all that. In fact, bulk of our production, we are the second highest producer of cassava in the world, actually, behind Brazil. Yeah, we use about 6.5 million hectares to cultivate 50 million metric tons of cassava, in which we can be doing about 100 to 120. Our yield per hectare is actually lower than elsewhere. And while we are one of the leading producers of cassava, we are not among the 10 exporters of cassava value added products. We talk in lives of Indonesia, Vietnam, Brazil, US, China, and all that. Let's leave that aside. Another thing that you mentioned is actually, you know, the importance of, you know, rural stability and rural prosperity to urban security, urban stability, and urban prosperity. Yeah, because when we keep having this kind of migration, people can't find a good living in the rural part. You know, they join the urban settlement and they don't have something meaningful to do. You know, start joining crimes and all that, and even the increase in population puts pressure on the urban facilities. Yeah, so urban facilities is strained, and you know, and maybe we keep having all these endemic issues that takes bulk of our budget. So those are some of the things that we have to look into. So after looking at all that you said, I realized that, you know, for the rural economy to actually be prosperous, to actually be stable, we need establishments of, you know, facilities in the rural area. having electricity, access to market, access to water, access to basic, access to healthcare facility, and they are producing resources, and they are producing foods and resources important for other sectors. Well, if you have um, um, those that take off their resources, or we have processing facilities in that area, in their areas rather. Because there was a time that I went to where they produce cassava a lot. I think Ibarapa, or is it,
Yeah.
those areas, you see trucks of cassava, but you don't find one major industry or one major company there that is helping to, process those cassava into gari, fufu, and all that. In fact, bulk of the cassava that we produce is wasted. Actually, is wasted. About, I think, half of it is wasted. Is wasted, and it doesn't really tell me. It's why I'm very bullish on this agro industrial processing zones that they are seeking to establish, and I hope that the FG and other state government would look into fast tracking the establishment and incorporation, linking up farmers with the processors. Like farmers can access them, they can provide storage facilities for them, all that. Yeah. So I'll just go to the third question, then we can entertain a question for the audience. But I must say that it's been very insightful so far. Part of the question that I wanted to ask you, but you mentioned briefly, one of it is, what you've mentioned what you've done, in catalyzing the rural economy. But I was going to ask that what is the Department of Agricultural Extension doing? I know that the Agricultural Extension in UI, they do this kind of outreach program, try to impact their community. Maybe you would try to, expand our view on it, or what the university is actually doing itself. Because I know that the university itself is pouring internal generation, like productive activities. There was a time that we had UI waters, UI bread, and you see PYTP students when they produce their perishables, vegetables, peppers, and all that. They still market it within the university, and the university gives them this kind of ability to be able to market their produce within the community. Actually, maybe if you can quickly address that briefly.
Yeah. What do we do in agric extension? Like every other department in the university, our focus, let me say our focus in this case, there are three. The first is teaching. The second one is research, and the third is community development. Now, when it comes to the area of teaching, we're happy that we have somebody like you. We taught you, and at the end of the day, you are able to do this. You are impacting the what do you call it? The economy, the way with what you are doing. Even if people are not listening or watching us live, this will still be on Facebook for a very long time. People will still watch whatever we say and some of your other programs. So we have produced a number of students like you who are doing well in the society, helping to promote the cause of agriculture. Then we've also produced those who are working in different sectors within the economy, both locally and internationally in the area of agriculture. Then number two, we contribute to research in the area of extension, as in how we can better do things. For instance, I'm a development communicator by area of specialization. So my researches are usually in the area of how best can we reach the people, which media do we, which media are more effective and things like that. So we do that in the area of that. But more importantly is in the area of community outreaches that we do. We have a social laboratory at Ileobo. We have another social laboratory at Igbora. At Igbora, we even collaborate with UCH. so that even issues of health and what have you are brought, because the life of a farmer or the rural man is like that of any other person. We have to look at this problem holistically, and because of that, we collaborate with GCH in actually taking care of some of the problems as well, as well as the agricultural problems. At Iliogbo, for instance, we've had a lot of interventions in the area of training, in the area of provision of small assets, productive assets that they can use to turn their lives around. Currently, recently we collaborated with a center within UI called CPL. I think a center for I think energy, economics, and petroleum, or something like that, in providing infrastructure that relate to power, energy, in a community called Imini. I think it's on our local government within Oyo State. So we whenever we see any good thing that is coming in and you require the right place to intervene with some of these goodies that are brought, we link them to the right set of people that will actually need them. Then we've also been engaged as a department and as individual consultants in a lot of national projects. Talk of FADAMA, talk of CSDP, talk of appeals, talk of even the Oxtec program in Ogun State, and so many other projects like that. We are always involved as consultants who assist in backstopping some of these projects, providing the technical know-how for them to actually succeed. So we do a lot of this from time to time, and directly or indirectly, we always we do this to enhance the livelihoods of the rural household. So we are engaged in a number of some of these projects, right from the establishment of the department up to today. We are still doing that, and I think I can stop there, because I believe you probably did your own PYTP2 at Iliogbo. If you did, you will have noticed some of the things we did at Iliogbo.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm not familiar with anything that the university and the department, has been doing to impact the community beyond the four walls, I would actually know the PYTP and the Iliogbo. I really like that. The university and the department, they are doing a lot of things. Yeah, and I look forward to seeing more impactful activities from both of them. We have very interesting question here. I'm just going to read it out. Then I'll ask the third question. So you would just so that the question will be marinating. You'll be providing answers for it. But it's actually an interesting one. The person is asking that. Okay, it's actually from Samuel Adesuyi. That thank you so much for your views. How do we segregate rural economic growth and development from welfareism when it comes to agricultural development in Nigeria, noting that Pareto principle could apply to industrial development of our economy? I think what this person is trying to look at is that maybe we should move away from this subsidizing of farming, especially with smallholder farmers, and looking at the bigger part, playing with commercial farming and all that. So it's actually an interesting question. So let me just go to the third question. You address that. So this is the question that I wanted to ask. When you responded to I think the first question that I asked you.
Maybe I should first answer that.
Okay.
Let me answer. If what Samuel meant is that we should, like some people will say that the government has no business in business. I think it's something that is not exactly right. We may say that we are having issues with corruption with respect to the management of our subsidy programs, but that does not remove the fact that we still need to subsidize certain things. And in fact, in the so-called sinner climes, where they tell us that we should remove subsidy from this, remove subsidy from that, you will see that they are still subsidizing certain things. What we have not properly done is that we've not properly, we are not subsidizing production. We are subsidizing consumption. That is where the problem lies. And even in the area where we want to subsidize production, we discover that the corruption that exists is so much that it erodes the efforts that we are putting in place. Now, every Nigerian that you come across right now is complaining of hunger, is complaining of the times being hard. And why are they complaining? It's simply because we removed subsidy from petroleum. That is just it. So it means all along, the government had been, what do you call it, bankrolling our lifestyle. And the moment they removed it, we started crying. Up to today, let us go. You go to the US, go to Ukraine, go to anywhere where they are producing wheat in abundance. You discover that the government is providing some form of subsidy to the farms. If they are not doing that, they will be having problems. Now you discover that even in the industrial sector, they bail out some of the industries when they are about failing, because if they don't do that, a lot of people will lose their job. So it's actually something that needs to be done. Everywhere you go, the government is always supporting the productive enterprise, the industry. If you don't do that, you are just deceiving yourself. Capitalism has to be moderated. It has to be moderated. Even at least the bastion of capitalism is in the United States of America. Yet they still subsidize their industry. They bail out their industries when they want to fail. So if you are bailing out something, how is it different from providing subsidies? So what we should say is that we should manage our subsidy regime very well. And it is not everything that we can subsidize, just like it's not everything that they are subsidizing in all those countries. So we should focus on certain critical areas that we actually need, that we really need the subsidy, and provide the subsidy in those areas, while in the other areas we may be paying for them. If you go to the Scandinavian countries, for instance, Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, all of them, you see, they subsidize education. In fact, in some of these countries, you see that even tertiary education up to PhD is free. Particularly, I know that of Finland. I'm sure of that of Finland is free at all levels. Even as a Nigerian, if you want to go to Finland to go and school, it is free. The only thing they will ask you to send forward is the money that you use to maintain yourself, as to feed yourself while in school. And because of the exchange rate, it's going to be a lot of money for you. So when we look at it, you see, they are subsidizing their education because they believe that by subsidizing the education, they will make life more abundant for their people. If you go to the UK, they have the NHS, which means that the subsidy that they are providing is in the area of health. And like I said, if you look at the United States of America, they subsidize agriculture heavily, and they subsidize the industries heavily. They make it easy for you to be able to set up the industry. So in Nigeria, we only need to focus on certain key areas that we know that those areas, they touch the lives of everybody, and we manage it effectively so that it will not be ridden with corruption. I think that is what we need to do. But for us to say that we want to remove subsidy from everything, at the end of the day, people will continue to shout the evening power that they are shouting right now. So I'm not saying they should restore subsidy on petroleum. It has gone, let it be gone forever. But there are still some areas that we need subsidy, but we need to manage the subsidy regime very well. One of it is in this area of agriculture. There is no way, if we allow the farmers to charge the right prices for what they are producing, there's no way anybody, when people, when my wife complains about the prices of things, I would just tell the farmer is going to the same, is using the same transportation that you are using. He's paying the same the same fares. Is paying this your band A, band B, what do you call it, for electricity, as you are doing, his children will go to school, and he also wants to the best of education for his children. So he will take them to the school where they are going to pay, private schools and what have you. So how can you now say that this farmer should not be able to enjoy what you people are enjoying? So if he actually wants to enjoy what you are enjoying, then it means he should charge appropriate prices for his produce. And if he does that, everybody will continue to shout that the prices of this produce are very, very high. So for it to come down, somebody has to pay. So the appropriate price that we don't want him to charge, somebody has to pay for him to be able to reduce that. So you reduce his cost of production. And it is in the area of reducing his cost of production that this subsidy of a thing will come in. You know, in the past, it's usually in the area, say they are doing fertilizer subsidy and everything, and we discover that they give them half bag of fertilizer, half bag of sand. You know, things like that, or some contractors will just pack everything and they will go and resell. That is what we've been having. It's about corruption, not really that subsidizing certain aspects of our life is not good.
Okay.
So you may proceed with that question.
Okay, yeah, I just want to quickly add to that. Yeah, I think what the person is saying, I understand. Like, is emphasizing, you know, prudent deployment of resources to efficiency and productivity. You know, like let me take tomato as an example. When we look at we use about 900,000 hectares to produce 3.5 million metric tons of tomato. Yeah. But when you look at that, we are the second highest producer of tomato in Africa after Egypt. Yeah. But when we look at what Egypt is the first largest producer of tomato in Africa. So Egypt does over 6 million metric tons of tomato. But when we look at the hectares put to production in producing that over 6 million metric tons, it actually uses just 20% of the land that we put to production. So there's a whole lot of inefficiency and waste of resources. Bulk of our production increases have been with, you know, putting more land under cultivation. But I would argue that, you know, the realities in different countries, they are different. Bulk of our own farmers are, you know, they are smallholder farmers, and even when you look around the world, those that produce most of the food eaten around the world, they are smallholder farmers. It's just that, you know, the bigger farms, or, you know, the bigger processors take commodities, raw materials from these smaller farmers, you know, to make it into something big and more valuable. So we feel that their effort is not significant, but it's actually significant. Yeah. When we look at the issue of subsidy too, in fact, we pay one of the lowest subsidy to agriculture in the world. I don't know why we keep making a lot of noise that, you know, we are paying subsidy and subsidy. But I understand. I understand that one of the government or the administration that has paid a lot of subsidy is actually the immediate past administration to the legume cereals and grain cereals farmers, you know, to the tune of 1 trillion naira. 1 trillion, is it 1.062 trillion naira? So when we look at these indices, whether we are to go with this CBN or we are to go with the IMF, you know, the CBN claims that about 45%, looking at the anchor borrowers program instrument given to farmers. I think they gave about 562 beneficiaries. Yeah, for about 45% wasn't paid back, you know, non-performing, and the IMF claimed that it was up to 75%. So what am I trying to draw out from here is that the real farmers that actually took the loan complained that, you know, is the harsh economic environment in which they were operating. That's one of the reasons why they cannot refund what was given to them. Why there was a revelation that bulk of the instrument actually went to people that weren't even farmers in the first place. So it's not about subsidy is not working, or it's not good to give out subsidy. It's actually monitoring and evaluation. Disbursing the instrument to verified farmers. Can we establish a verifiable list of farmers, and can we verify our farmers? So in those ways, we know who our farmers are and who we are giving subsidy to. So in that way, it's actually going to be very effective than just dishing out subsidy that way. So that's just what I would like to add to that. And even when we look at our farmers, that they are producing about 60% of the smallholder farmers form 60% of our farmers, and they are producing 80% of what we need. Imagine that we are able to support them with the right tools, improve their efficiency. Imagine the volume of foods that they will be producing for us. So that's what we have to look at. Rather than seeking to replace our smallholder farmers, we look at how to improve their operation. So I'll just go to the third question.
Now, Aziz, before you go ahead, please, I can see that Samuel is still talking about this. It's about that we should commercialize our product. No, fine, it's beautiful. Going to commercial agriculture is very, very beautiful. But you have to start from where you are, and from there you upscale. And I think, like Toyib actually hinted, I think the major problem is about productivity. It's not about the size, it's about what you get from the size. And that's the most critical thing. So what we have currently, even if it's these small-scale farmers that we want to be, we want to continue to carry the burden of agricultural production, we have to be able to make sure that their productivity increases. If their productivity increases, some of these things that we are talking about will not be an issue. So a situation whereby you can get 10 tons per hectare elsewhere, and what we can only do in Nigeria is probably 3 tons per hectare in a particular crop. It's an issue. But if we can have a situation whereby we can best what they are doing elsewhere, it's fine. So nobody's actually against commercialized production. It takes a private person who has a business, the business acumen to go into farming and do it at a commercialized level. But even these small-scale farmers that we are talking about, we don't want them to be subsistent. They may be small, but we still want them to tend towards commercialization with the small-scale agriculture that they are doing. Scale in the terms of space, not in terms of what the output. So when we look at what they will be able to produce from this small space in terms of improved productivity, we can still get a lot from them. But just to clarify that I'm not against commercialized production. So you can shoot, Toyib.
Okay, so I'm going to add to that as well. I agree absolutely with you, because you cannot compare a smallholder farmer in a place like the US and a smallholder farmer in a place like somewhere in a nation in Africa, because the kind of input they have access to, talking about precision agriculture, self-driving tractors, they are able to, monitor their production from an app. The government is supporting them and all that. I think we have a situation of a skill versus productivity here. We are not saying that skill is not important. Looking at the big firms in the world like Amazon, Apple, they generate employment, and for the most part, they make a lot of money than they contribute to the society. But when you look at those who power the world, that run the economy, they are actually SMEs. SMEs provide bulk of the employment in the world, and bulk of revenues that goes to government to run important public activities. So we have to look at it beyond just just scale. We have to look at it at the productivity level and the impact level as well. So I'll just go to the third question. I really appreciate Samuel for sending in that question, because it helps us to look at things from different angles here. So I'll just go to this question now. Dr. Badiru, when we look at the food situation, we keep seeing that there is an extension gap. We've been able to establish that there's an extension gap. But could you help us with some of the extension lapses and understanding them? Why do we keep having this extension gap?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. First of it is, and the major gap that we have in extension, that's been contributing to the gap that we have in extension, is that of inadequate funding. When you see something, I think it was while I was still on the field before joining the university, that they told one of the extension organization, public extension organization, that they will also have to be contributing a certain amount of money to the, to the internal generated revenue of the state. It was, at that time, it was very, very laughable, because we need to understand that extension is a social service. In fact, what we produce is not tangible. It's not something you can see immediately, but you can feel the impact in the long run. So some of the people that are managing our affairs do not see things from this perspective. So they do not devote or dedicate adequate funds towards extension. So this is a problem, because for you to be able to reach the farmers, to conduct training sessions, to implement new technologies, you need a lot of funding to do it. We also have this challenge too, the challenge of insufficient staffing. In fact, I was looking at the Agricultural Productivity Survey, the APS, for 2023, and I discovered that when I looked at extension to farmer ratio, you discover that we are grossly behind the standard that is expected. That, okay, this is the number of extension agents that we are expected to have with respect, if you have this population of farm families. We are behind. In fact, there is a particular state, I will not mention the state, they do not even have any data about the extension to farm family ratio in that particular state. And the states will continue to make noise that they are doing a lot in agriculture, they are doing a lot in everything, in every aspect of life. They do not have data on this particular important activity. Then, how abreast of the current, technologies are this the current set of people that we say we even have as staff? I was teaching a course called Contemporary Issues in Agriculture, Contemporary Issues in Agricultural Extension. And I think I was now talking about, there was a time I talked about regenerative agriculture. I taught an aspect, I call it regenerative agriculture. I was asking, has anyone, and I know that there is a particular extension officer in that class that was, I think, probably on level 13 or level 14. Have you heard of this before? I said no. I also talked about the use of artificial intelligence and Internet of Things in the area of agriculture. I said that's the first time you will be hearing of something like that. And these are issues. So people who are expected to take the driver's seat in making this innovation get to the the end users. If they are not aware of it, how do we move forward? But like one of my guys used to say when I was still on the field, we say, if you do not train them, you do not blame them. So these people themselves, how many trainings and capacity buildings are we organizing for them? And when we're organizing trainings and capacity building, is it not just money for the boys? Are they really training in the real sense of it? Go and check. We have Agricultural and Rural Management Training Institute, AMTI. When was the last time some of our Ministry of Agriculture at the state level, at the local government, when was the last time they sent people there for trainings? And I've been there a number of times. You'll see that we have quality and qualitative trainers in that particular establishment that are being paid. Their job is to train people like us and those people that are serving, that are doing the work of extension and agriculture at the different levels. But when was the last time that people were trained. Even myself, as a what do you call it, as a university staff, when was the last time anybody trained me? People will feel that you know, because you have PhD, you should know everything, and that's not the way things work. So we have issues with repeated what do you call it, continuous training and capacity building. I've talked about the issue of lack. You know, we are not using the right technology. Even people who want to deploy the technology do not know how to deploy it. Then we also have infrastructural challenges that relate to even the issue of logistics. The extension agents, if you want them to go to these rural areas, you have to provide them with mobility. If the roads are not good enough, how do you expect them to get there? Some of our governors now, they are focusing on urban roads alone. They are not doing anything with the rural roads. How do you make the rural environment habitable for the extension agent so that he will want to settle his family there and be able to carry out his activity in those locales? But a situation whereby everybody wants to, a situation where you have an extension agent that is living, for instance, in the urban center, and we only move down to the rural area to do his work. The moment he finishes, he comes back. You are not making him look like a resident agric extension practitioner who should actually stay with people and know their problems, study them, live among them, and will be able to know. So because you are not somebody that, for instance, you went to the university, you've enjoyed the life, what it is like to be in, where there is electricity, where there is this, where there is that, and all of a sudden somebody just wants to condemn you to the life in a place where there is no electricity, where there is no good road, where there is no pipe-borne water. It's more or less like they just want to kill you. That's the way you look at it. So these are some of the gaps that we are having that are actually compounding the problems that we are actually facing. And until we start, because you requested for the solution, until we start paying the right attention to extension, first realizing that it's a social service that we may not necessarily see the results immediately. Because I go to the farm, for instance, I train the farmers, and when you ask me what have I done, at the end of it, I say I've trained farmers. Where do you see training? Can you hold trainings like this? It's different from supplying farmers with probably cutlasses or some other farm implements that they're going to use. So what we do is the technology we pass across is something that people cannot touch. And so most of the time, those in government may not really appreciate what we are doing. So the government needs to pay more attention to the fact that extension is a social service that we need to actually fund. Let me give you another example of something that we are not doing right. I know in time past, virtually every radio station had an in-house program on agriculture. How many radio stations now have programs on agriculture? How many? They expect, because they have commercialized, everything is on the altar of profit. So even our public radio stations and TV stations, they are now operating like the private radio and TV stations. So because of that, said for a program to go on, it must be sponsored. And this is something that has to do with the livelihood of the people. We cannot treat issue of agriculture, issue of education, and issue of health the way we treat every other issue. We have to understand that these are social services that we may not be able to actually touch what is being done, but the impact is long lasting. So the moment we change our orientation towards agriculture, towards some of these social services, I think we'll get a better angle of how to handle things. And if the government is feeling that to start, for instance, that it's too costly for them, they may have to start with probably those who went to some of these monotechnics where they did agri extension technology, where they did ND, so that at least they will pay less compared to what they are going to pay those who finish from the university. So we need to look at this, and we need to fund it appropriately. We need to staff our extension organizations appropriately. We need to provide training and capacity building from time to time. We need to make sure that our extension agents, they move with time, that they're able to use improved technology that others are using. Then the macro issue, just like it is affecting everybody, issue of good roads, issue of making sure that basic amenities are there in the rural areas that the extension agents will also want to work, stay at their workplace and do what is expected of them.
Okay, sir. That was really elaborate. I agree with you as well that extension has to adapt to the reality of service provision in the contemporary world. Adoption of futuristic technology, like you've mentioned, IoT and artificial intelligence and all that. But like you've mentioned as well, it requires significant investment. In fact, when you look at the remnants of the effective extension that we have today is actually from well-funded extension effort from the World Bank and USAID. That was in the 70s and 80s. Yeah. So the government have to look into it, how to properly fund extension service, because it's very important to reaching a food secure and food sufficient nation. That's actually important. And we also looking at how to establish the appropriate workforce, and also building their capacity, training them to be able to deliver what is expected to them, and not only committing to their material life, but also to their mental well-being. And wherever they are, they should be able to have access to life enhancing facilities, like we've discussed before. Like in a rural environment, there should be electricity, water, good roads, markets, and all that makes life worth living for an extension agent in the rural part of the country. Like you've discussed with us, an extension agent is meant to be with farmers. Yeah, you mentioned something that really stuck with me. Extension agents are able to see problems before it even become a reality. How did they know that? It's by living with farmers, understanding them, and you are able to foresee a trend of event before it even become a reality. So I really appreciate that. Someone mentioned on the comment section that according to IRAM in Mali, the extension rate is one extension agent for 500 households. Why, based on the recommendation of the FAO, is actually meant to be one extension agent to 250 farmers. But I've seen these similar statistics as this. In some countries, it's actually worse than this, way higher. Having about 10,000 farmers to one extension agent. You can imagine what impact you want one extension agent to have in the life of those farmers. And it's actually important why you mentioned one of the ways that we can actually, feel for the deficit of the workforce, like employing some of our polytechnic graduates. I was even going to come to that, but that's another question on its own. So in the meantime, anyone that has a question, because we took question already, because we said after the first section of the program we're going to take questions. So someone already sent in question and we addressed that succinctly. So if you have any question, you can send it in, then we'll take it during the course of addressing the other questions that we have for the program today. So Dr. Badiru, I'll just go to the fourth question now. Yeah. So with what we have seen with inadequate support from extension to farming household and rural communities to transform their livelihoods, agriculture and rural economy, we could say that there is no responsive national extension system. So what I want to ask is that, has there been any extension approach that worked or was promising Moreover, how do we go about establishing a responsive and effective extension system? You've already mentioned, the issue of funding. That's very important. One of the least funded sector is actually agriculture. You can imagine that if agriculture is not receiving more than a percentage of the national budget, how much extension is going to be seen from agriculture budget? So we actually have to address that. Maybe you could give us like a brief history of extension approaches, what we have been doing wrong and what has worked that we can adapt, what can we learn from it, some example of good case studies and how we can actually practically structure our extension system. I hope the question is not too much.
Not too much. What I'll just try to do is summarize extension approaches in just two.
Okay.
Well, every other thing that we have are just variants within those two approaches. The first is something that is a top bottom, like the usual technology transfer approach that we used right from the colonial period in Nigeria. For instance, Britain was interested in cotton, it was interested in groundnut, was interested in oil palm, and because of that, they will make sure that farmers are trained. Farmers are trained to provide that particular to provide what they need. You understand what I'm trying to say? They will train them to provide what they need. So not necessarily what the farmers are interested in producing. So that was the initial approach. The second approach, which is more or less like another end of the continuum, is what is known as the top-bottom approach, which is more or less like we call it community-driven development nowadays. It's all about sitting with the farmers to know what their interests are, and based on what their interests are, we now meet them based on their needs. So, for instance, if my focus is to produce for the market, and in the market in Nigeria, I'm not interested in what happens in Europe or what happens elsewhere. I'm just interested in servicing the people who eat gari in my area. So extension will support me along that value chain to make sure that I'm able to produce very well. And like I said, we now have different versions of this bottom-up approach or the CDD approach. We've had it in form of farmer field school in the past, and more recently the CDD approach that many people are using. All of these are participatory approaches. Now, when you look at this transfer of technology approach, we used to have something like the T&B system, which was actually very, very effective. The training and visit approach then that we had right from in the 70s and the 80s when the ADPs were functional, and the structures are still there right now. And after a while, because of the advantages of the bottom-up approach, we add what is called the modified T&B, in which the top-bottom approach was now immersed, mixed with the bottom-up approach. And I think that would be more appropriate for us, because it's not in every case that things are driven from the bottom. There are times that there may be need for the government to drive certain processes. For instance, look at what we did with respect to Anchor Borrowers program in the area of rice and all those, I think 6 important crops and produce in Nigeria. It was the government that drove the process. So it looks like a top-bottom thing. But in the process too, you have a situation whereby you use some of these bottom-up approaches to also drive this process. So we need something that is mixed and in between. Now, so what has worked before? The ADP system is something that has worked and will continue to be a reference point in this country. When the ADP was at its peak, when before the withdrawal of the World Bank funding, we used to have We have the ADP at the state level. Okay, let me start from the national. We have the project coordinating units at the national level. These project coordinating units, they are coordinating the different agri development projects in each of the states. In each state, you have the zonal structures, the zonal ADPs. In the zonal, in some states, you have up to 4 zones. Some states, you have 3 zones. Now, at the zone, you now have what they call blocks. In these blocks, they have different block offices. Some of them is a local government that form a block. In some instances, you may have up to 2 local governments forming a block. Then under the block, you now have cells. These cells are the different communities that constitute the block. And up to now, if you go around the country, you still see the block offices. The only problem is that you see that they are now inhabited by snakes, reptiles, goats, if those blocks are close to the community. That is what you see. So this is something that worked in that time, because as at that time, the extension agents were actually living with the people. They are living with the people, and because they are living, like we said earlier, they can easily foresee some of these problems before they start happening. And because they are there, they interact with them from that, and they can still easily take those challenges to the subject matter specialists during their fortnight trainings, which they used to call FNT. When they had challenges with funding, they reduce the number of times that they meet to monthly. Then it became MT, monthly trainings. So, and if they cannot undo that problem at that particular level, they scale it up and probably get in touch with some of these research institutes. And that is why at some point we used to have what is called refuse. We have research, farmer input, linkage, and something like that, research extension farmers and input linkage system. So till I left the field and I came to the university, I know they were still having some southwest refuse that will be handled by I think more plantation then IR&T, that they will come, the research will interface with the ADPs, and at times they bring the farmers, at times they bring the input suppliers and what have you. And it was a brilliant system then, but like one of our sages at UI said, all things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small, all things wise and wonderful, Nigeria spoiled them all. So at some point we spoiled everything, and we've been experimenting with a lot of things now that we can't really say they are working as they should be working. You see, they just cut my power. So they just cut my power, but I'll use my natural electricity to continue talking. So at some point we had this challenge. We've also experimented with private approaches to extension. In fact, what you are doing now is a private approach, a private extension approach, because nobody is paying you. We just pray that if this, let me use your language as people of your generation, if this blows, maybe at the end of the day, Meta will be paying you for doing this. That is where probably you can get for your services. So this is one of the things. Then we have the NGOs too. They are doing their best. We have some of these NGOs that are also into the area of agriculture and things like this. Like I said, all of these approaches, they are just variants of those two approaches. What is more or less a direct approach, which is top bottom, and the one that is bottom up, in which which is participatory, you have to consult with the people before you solve their problem. So, and how do we go about solving our problems? You see, one of the things that we need to actually work on is when system is working for you and you've already built some structure, you don't reinvent the wheel. What you can do is to modernize or improve upon what you have, the structure that you have on ground. But in our own case, we will not improve upon what we have. We just destroy what was existing, and we'll come up with something that is not properly, it's not well thought out. In fact, there's this particular book. It's National Agricultural Extension Policy. At the national level, they have worked on this. That is at Nigeria. But how many of our states have actually, domiciled, how do we put it? As in, how many of them have domesticated this policy in the states? And that's a challenge. In fact, most of our ministries of agriculture, there was a time I posed this, I gave the poster that what exactly is the blueprint of those people who are coming into office as commissioners of agriculture? What is their blueprint? So if you see their blueprint, you'll be able to say, this is how they want to drive agriculture, and this is the role that extension is going to play in the administration. But in many of the states, this is lacking. So we need to look for how to merge all of these different approaches that are working and that can still continue to work for us. We will need a little bit of this top-bottom approach. We need a little bit of this CDD approach. We need to combine our face-to-face, the T&B system, which we call modified T&B now. We need to use it. We need to back it up with the media. We need to back it up with the media. We need to create a space for the private practitioners to come on board. We need to create a space for the NGO to come on board, and we must find a way of harmonizing all of this so that they will not be working at cross purposes. The funny thing is, even when we're talking about the fact that our extension is driven by the public arm, at a time that the ADPs were going comatose, the trained staff within the ADPs, despite the fact that they were drawing their salaries from the public purse, many of them were going into private consultancies, which is actually private extension. Because as we still have it today, the pool that we have at the ADP is still one of our best trained practitioners in the field of agriculture. In fact, whenever anybody consults me that you want to do this one, I say, just go to any ADP that is close to you. You always see somebody that will assist. Because apart from the field staff that we most of us are used to, they have people they call subject matter specialists, that the minimum qualification they have is Masters of Science degree in a specialized area of agriculture. You always have them. Then they have specialists in virtually every field that you can think of. They have tree crop specialists, they have aquaculture specialists, we have every area that you can think of. And some of them are having their own outfit now that they are running. In fact, I have one of them that is into private, into broadcasting now. He was a communication officer for one of the ADPs then, and he's doing his bit right now after retirement. He has gone into private practice. So all of these are coexisting, but we must find a way of harmonizing them. And I think some of these issues have actually been dealt with in the National Agricultural Policy. What we only require is for the states to domesticate some of this policy at their level and to be ready to work with them. But as we have it, we keep on focusing on the wrong side. Every time, everything is about the federal government, whereas the people we should actually take all responsible for some of these lapses that we are seeing. We are not holding them responsible. In a particular state, a governor, this state that I'm talking about, has not less than 10 farm settlements. In these farm settlements, they decided to focus on just one of them. And even the only one that they focus on is being driven through the public-private partnership of a thing. And they will not let you rest, making so much noise as if they have done all that is required to drive agric in that particular state. No, it can be annoying. I'll tell you. That's why the fact that in fact, I've changed my research focus from radio to entertainment education, because I don't want to be listening to radio programs again. Because what I hear is always annoying to me. You see, these are white lies, blatant lies that people will be telling you that as if things are going well, when things are actually not going well in many of the states. I think I should just stop here so that you can have your opportunity to the opportunity to ask some other questions.
That's really insightful. Just to mention this, someone is actually watching us from Sweden, and is saying that this is a very interesting discussion. You are doing well with the topic, Dr. Idris, rather, love from Sweden. I just wanted to mention that. And someone else, Amadou Bala Musa Traore, has been contributing on the comment section. He has actually been lamenting the issue with training and informing that there is a lot of need for training to train the extension agents. It goes in line with what you have been discussing so far. And Bayonle Arimi Yao Oladoja also says it's a very interesting discussion. Like you've mentioned previously, like it's actually good that this is a virtual event, and it's being recorded. So those people that are not able to join us today, they'll be able to listen to it later and actually get the gems from this discussion. I really appreciate this discussion, Dr. Badiru. And I'm just, like I always do after you've furnished us with insights here, just to add my own bits to hit. I think the TMV or the ADP structure of extension is one of the best that we've had, and it's really interesting with what you've mentioned. It's well structured. You have the subject matter specialists. You have people that are well educated in different positions. Like there is an hierarchy. You know who to report to, and when you report, you take the feedback from the field back to the extension unit itself, for solution, or even you as a subject matter specialist or a worker within the extension value chain. You're able to communicate your personal challenges, maybe with training, with disseminating information, and they are able to work on it, develop more your capacity. Yeah, so that's very, very, very interesting. One of the problems that we keep having is policy transitioning. You have a case whereby something that has worked perfectly in the past is not transitioned into the future. People usually say that the issue of governance is not about political party, it's about the prosperity of the nation. You understand? When you see something that is working, that has worked from the past administration, you should be able to adopt it. Or if you are not even going to adopt it fully, at least build on it and make some changes that does not necessarily disregard or disrupt what has worked previously. So that's one of the things I would like to mention. I love the fact that you sort of match the top-bottom approach and the bottom-up approach together. Talking about the essence of the public institution and the private institution. Although there's still a question that I want to ask on that, but you've been able to address that a bit. So that's very, very insightful. Thank you so much. So I just go to the fifth question. We are rounding up already. We have 6 questions. We've gotten to the 5th one, then the 6th one. The 6th one is also very crucial. It's pertaining to the people in the extension field themselves. How to create career for themselves. Make meaning of their discipline. Yeah. So I'll go to the 5th question. With the inefficiency and ineffectiveness of extension, there is a debate of adopting public or private extension, or both, or even the innovation system that entails a multiple stakeholder approach. Which approach do we go with based on the pros and cons? Is the extension landscape welcoming for private and non-public participation? What role can technology play in ensuring a responsive extension advisory and support system? We would like you to help us with examples of some of these, although you've mentioned the IoT and artificial intelligence here. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. We cannot restrict ourselves to a particular approach in this case. We can't really say we should focus on the public alone. All of them can exist, what do you call it, side by side within the extension landscape. And we have been doing that, and that is, in fact, currently what we are experiencing is that we have the public extension existing hand in hand with the private extension, and that's why I pointed out what we are doing is private extension. And apart from people like you, we even have many of these input suppliers. All these big names that you can think of, they employ some of our graduates. Sometimes they call them agronomists, and I don't know why they always do that, because what they are going to do eventually is not the work of agronomists. They're actually doing the work of extension, because they market. Not only do they market, they also provide advisory, extension and advisory services. So people like this they also support in the extension system. Then is the landscape, is it ready for private extension? Of course, it depends on the perspective from which you are looking at it. For the small scale farmers, we may have the public extension system focusing on them. But there are some big establishments that require the services of a consultant, agricultural specialist. What the consultant would do at the end of the day is the work of extension. So that is private extension on its own. We may not necessarily be seeing offices that are called private extension office, but when they call themselves so consulting, and they will tell you that they are in the area of agriculture, they are in the area of this, there's no way they will not provide extension services, and people are actually paying for them, which means that as we speak, private extension is thriving. But there have been a lot of people, you know this, that many of our graduates are not even going to agriculture. People who read agriculture. It's people who did not read Agric that are actually going into agriculture. And they are getting their information on agriculture from certain sources. Some they get it from all these, what do you call it? They get it from websites. Some of them will fail before they start getting their feet. Some of them will hire some of these people that I talked about. They are in the ADP. They are supposed to be providing public extension service. They will pay them and they will help them to set up some of these services. Some of them, you get people who do not even have, who are on their own. Look at many of these veterinary medicine graduates now. They are providing extension services to poultry producers, to livestock producers, and what have you. The service they are providing is extension. And it's private extension practice, extension service. In fact, there was a time I saw a particular program, but I've been trying to get that program now since that time. It is from this guy, this funny, this clown. I think it's Frank Donga. What do they call his name? He used to have a program on agriculture. That kind of program on agriculture is private extension. So I think maybe he read animal science in UI at some point or something like that. Maybe at his master level or something like that. So a lot of these are actually ongoing. So already, public and private extension, their services are coexisting within a landscape. Even the one being driven by those who are not for profit, the NGOs, like the JDPCs of this world, they are coexisting with the public extension service. But like I said earlier on, what we need to do is to find a way of harmonizing and structuring them so that we know the strength of each of these types of extension, and where we can use them adequately. So that is what is more important.
That's really interesting, to see the different ways extension services being carried out and not necessarily being tagged under extension. Like you said, someone from veterinary medicine undertaking a service that's actually agricultural extension, and that's really great. So I will just move to the last question. I'm sure that a lot of people in the audience must have been anticipating this. It's for people who major in agricultural extension. They are looking at the possibility and the opportunities out there for an extension graduate. Yeah. So I would like you to address this in great detail. This is the last question. You have the floor to talk as much as you want. Yeah. So I'll just go to the question now. One of the problems that we are having with extension not being uh, effective as it is that we have workforce and talent shortage. But on one hand, we have that, and on the other hand, there are thousands of unemployed agriculture and extension graduates out there. How do we reconcile these two? That, and like you mentioned, that in fact, it's not even it's people that are outside from the sector or from the discipline, that are seeing the opportunities in the sector and the discipline, and those that are graduated or studied from the sector and discipline at one point or the other are not seeing the opportunities. So we tend to wonder that what is happening here. So on one hand, I would ask that should this graduates not be incorporated into the system, to reinforce extension workforce? And I would like to ask is that, why do we keep seeing many of agriculture students who could be useful in pushing the sector forward and the extension system, abandon both? Why do we keep having this? How do we rectify this? Meanwhile, while you think about that, I would like you to address this as well. Two more questions, sub questions rather. Some of the extension students, rightly, do not know how to navigate the extension career. Some unaware of the opportunities and possibilities in the field. What do you have to say to these people? Advice, guideline, and what are the career opportunities and possibilities on a national and global front for an extensionist?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think a lot of the problems that we have within the sector, generally, not only restricting it to agric extension, is that most of the people who studied agric in the university, they are reluctant agriculturists. Many of them did not want to study agric in the first instance. They wanted to study medicine. They wanted to study some other courses. And at the end of the day, because they could not meet their cutoff points, they found themselves in agric. And some of them will continue to carry this thing over till for so many years to come. Some will quickly grow out of it and look at the opportunities that are bound within the field and try to make something out of it. So I think that is a major problem right from onset. I did a study looking at the self-esteem of our Greek students while they're in school. We discovered that it's only many of them only pick up their self-esteem improves only by the time they get to their towards the final year. So it means their first year, second year, they are still begrudging the course that they gave them, and they are still looking outside, looking at others who are doing some other courses, looking at them as if they are superior to them. They are not feeling fine about themselves. So many of them do not take the time to look at the end of the day, what can I make out of this field by the time I graduate? Because some of these things are mental situations. They are mental processes that you need to start working on right from the time that you get admission into the university. Somebody that get admission into the university should be able to foresee that, okay, after this my 5-6 years, where do I see myself? After 10 years, where do I see myself? After 15 years, where do I see myself? So somebody that was coming into the school with another picture in mind, and came to find himself in agric extension or whatever, and became disillusioned, cannot picture a future for himself, and that will continue to be a problem. Now, that is part of it. Another thing is, how do we even see agriculture? What is the general perception of agriculture around us? It is now that farmers are truly becoming king. Now that people are buying pepper, a basket of pepper for a large sum of money, now they are appreciating people who do agric. In fact, now, when we work now, we carry our shoulder high that, now you respect us. Before, it wasn't like that, because people will come, they will feel that it's only people who have lost out that studied agriculture, and that is the challenge. So now, for those who have gone into other fields, they've made money, they are looking for where to now invest their money. They see agric as a gold mine, because agric is something that if you want to go into it, it's always good for you to go into it at a scale. For instance, when you went to school, you studied maybe agric extension, you studied any aspect of agriculture. You know about businesses, you know about return on investment, you know about internal rate of returns, you know about all those things that you taught us in agric economics. And at the end of the day, you are not able to come up with enough money to be able to get the kind of profit that will make you live comfortably. Where would you want to go into such a venture? Nobody is into any venture for charity or for altruistic purpose. We are not Mother Teresa's. Everybody is, you have a family that you want to cater for. So you want to go into it, do your best because you have passion for it, but at the same time, you still want to be able to pay your bills. So at the end of the day, it's because people are not seeing that prospect based on what they have the ability to invest in that field. They are not seeing the kind of future they would like to live with their family coming out of that kind of investment. That's why they are going out of it. But for those who are coming from outside, some of them, they are coming in with big money. And they know that by the time they invest those big money, they'll be able to get certain amounts of profits, which many of them, they always get their fingers burnt. Because that's the reality. They get their fingers burnt. But they come into it with all those promises. They're enthusiastic. So it's always different compared to somebody who is not enthusiastic about that particular thing in the first instance. Now, coming home, as extension graduates, what future do people have? I keep saying this. As long as people will continue to eat, we will be relevant. As long as we have development issues, we will be relevant. So all over the world, an extension practitioner, somebody who studied extension, will always be relevant. We are lucky that when we got to the University of Ibadan, we were taught by the best. Among my teachers was somebody that had his PhD in mass communication. Among my teachers is another person that had his PhD in sociology. So we understand the fact that as extensionists, we have certain building blocks that make up what is called extension. So, and this gives us the opportunity to be able to work in diverse areas. So let me give you from the perspective of somebody that read agric extension and rural development and wants to work as a development communicator. Virtually every international organization in the field of agriculture that you can think of will always have what they call a communication officer. The person that is most fitted for that job is an agric extension graduate. But you know that at the end of the day, somebody that read mass comm will still be competing with this same job with you. And some will give priority to them because probably they do not know the importance of what you are coming to do. Now, many of these organizations, they have people that they call community engagement officers. In fact, there was a time I saw, was it Dangote or one of these, no, I think even NFPC at some point, even all these oil companies, they were recruiting community engagement officers because where their rigs are in the rural areas, they need somebody that will understand rural sociology and will be able to relate with the people well. the person that is most suited for this kind of work, who learned about community engagement, community entry in 400 level, is somebody that read agric extension. Now, at the World Bank, they have a lot of social protection programs. The person that is suitable, that is most suited to work there, somebody that read agric extension. They have people that work in the area of safeguard, social safeguards. The person has to must have a very good understanding of rural sociology. So these are the people that work there. They talk about resilience officer, people who manage resilience with respect in many of these companies where even when they talk about climate change and things like that. It's somebody that has a background in extension that will be most suited for this. Now coming back to what most of us know, that we have Ministry of Agriculture. They will need people in extension. Now, people can decide to go on their own, like you are doing, and be providing extension content in the media. If people know you for it, there are certain guys on Twitter that is what they are known for, and they have a large following. And all they do is they provide agri content. The best person that is suited to do this is somebody that read agri extension and rural development. But the major problem is that when people were in school, when they should start thinking about some of these things, they were not dreaming about it. They were annoyed with the course they were studying. And that is why we could have one particular guy that said he wanted to return his certificate in one university in Oyo State at that time. The guy actually read agric extension. I was wondering, how can somebody read agric extension? And this is what will be coming out from that person's mouth. Because the person has restricted himself to working for the government. That if you cannot get to work as an extension agent, and that is the end of it for you. Then all the banks, they have agric desks. They have agric desks in all the banks, commercial banks that you can think of. And that is why when they were doing the anchor borrowers thing, they were using some agric desk officers to actually manage it. It is people in agric extension, people in agric economics that are most suited to work in some of these in this bank at this level. Then, like I said, a lot of agricultural companies are coming. In fact, it was at the last expo that I attended that I realized that some of the things that we are not seeing, the benefits that we are not seeing in agriculture. Some other people from other countries are seeing it, and they are bringing in a lot of large companies, like agricultural companies, to Nigeria. They will need sales reps. They will need people who assist them in pushing some of their produce, some of their products to the eventual users. They need people who have gone through the process of who have learned about diffusion and adoption of innovations. Because what they are bringing are produce. You cannot market effectively if you are not somebody that has a very good understanding of diffusion and adoption of innovations. So it means that the opportunities are limitless. But these are people that will not even, what we do, by the time you get in 100 level, we try to do an orientation for you. We do it again at 200 level. To tell you some of these opportunities that are bound in extension. But somebody that is annoyed with himself, somebody that feels that he's a loser, that he has lost out, no matter what you tell them, it will always be going behind their ears, and they will not understand, they will not be able to grab it. So these are some of the problems that some of them are having. So my advice to people is that when you are given the opportunity to come and study agricultural extension or any other area of agriculture, the first thing is make sure you have a very good grade. And while you are making that very good grade, relax, move around, look for opportunity, ask questions. We'll be able to put you right on those areas where you can actually set your foot and make it as an agric extension graduate. To end it, let me tell you that we have a number of our former students who are working with agencies like USAID, United States of Agriculture, our United States Agency for International Development. We have some of them that are working for GIZ, that's the German equivalent. People who graduated from our department. We have people who work for FAO. We have people who work, that's Food and Agriculture Organization. We have people who work with the World Food Program. We have people who work with so many projects in this country. And the truth is, Sasakawa is there. People who work there, and I won't deceive you. No, what many of these young graduates, what they earn as salary is like 3 times the monthly salary of a professor. A professor at bar, they earn up to that, like 3 times the monthly salary of a professor at bar. That is level 7, step 10. They earn it in 1 month in some of these organizations. So it's not as if it's not a field that is private, but you need people to enlighten you, to guide your steps, so that you know what to do. But the best thing is, stop this self-pity that you found yourself in agriculture. If you feel that you are not interested, leave the system. Thank you very much. Ikrisat, Ileri, all of them, even Ilri, all of them, we have people working there. Simyit, all these international organizations, Agra, Farah, we have our people working there. We have our students, some students who are working there. So it's important that our people should understand this. Let them stop this self-pity. If you know that you really hate that agric so much, quit. Go and do something else. Yes, quit. Go and do something else. But if you are going to graduate eventually, make sure that you start seeking information about where you can make a career within the field of agriculture. And last but not the least, you can at the end of the day, you can decide to become somebody like us. You can still come back to the system, become a professor in the field of agriculture, or you can decide to be somebody like Toib, who starts a podcast or a broadcast on radio or TV program that will be promoting agriculture. As long as you are promoting, like providing information, promoting agriculture in whichever way you are doing it, at the end of the day, you are doing the work of extension, because it's all about information dissemination. It's all about empowering people. People can even go into what do you call it? Agricultural drama. We have Baban Lare is the first agricultural drama that we had in this country. Though a lot of people don't know about it again. Even Cockroach are down has a lot of agri content in it. So the opportunities are so much, but people are not patient enough to gather information. They should stop the self-pity. There's no need to pity anybody that finds himself in agriculture. It's something that is a field that is actually very, very lucrative.
That was really, really, really elaborate. You addressed the point of the topic. I really like that. I'm sure that people in the audience that have one question or the other, or one doubt of the other, you are able to help them cast that out. You are able to help them address that. And one thing that I took from your discussion is extension itself. The nature of extension discipline itself is versatile, and anybody that comes out from extension field must be versatile himself. And I want to use it to address this. Like you ended your insights with, you can decide to come and join us in the academia here. Even while you are in the academia doesn't mean that you'll be lecturing a lot. Because I've seen you doing farming activities as well. I think you have a farm.
I do a little.
A little. And you also take some other outreach function as well. Just because you are in academia doesn't mean that you can't still do some other things. So we have to.
I do more of those consultancies than agric itself. Yeah, so I do more consultancies. I consult for all these big international organizations.
So I implore everyone listening to this, to expand our thinking horizon, our possibilities of what can be out there. There's actually a whole lot of opportunities in the field of extension. Even when you look at it from just the lens of the farmer alone, like addressing a farmer's problem is not necessarily about disseminating information or innovation. There are a lot of things affecting a farmer's life than just what affects his livelihood. You have issue of education, issue of health, issue of market access, even down to when you extend beyond agriculture and all that, down to rural development itself. When organization wants to establish intervention in a community, they need people that would conduct the environmental impact assessment, relating with people, how it's going to impact the community. So these are some of the things that we have to actually think of. And what you discuss, you actually broke it into two parts. There's one that relates with agriculture and one that relates with agricultural extension itself, in terms of um, there's need for national orientation of people regarding agriculture, not seeing agriculture as one less prioritized discipline, or leftover discipline that if you don't get medicine, that's where you have to go to. I think there's a lot of uh, damage to the image of agriculture, thinking that agriculture is leftover course that you have to go to, and that's that. And now coming to the person studying agriculture, agricultural extension, as a person, there is a limit to which the system itself, the extension field, the lecturers, can impact on you. After they've impacted on you, it's left for you yourself now to make do with what you've taken from the four walls of the university, from your lecturer. Yeah, at the end of the day, you always have yourself to blame. They've given you all the tools that you need to use to survive, and you go out there and to make a living. In fact, people that they are saying that our institutions are not teaching people about entrepreneurship, about innovation, about how to be useful out there. I took course in, was it 300 level or 2 or 400 level? We took course on entrepreneurship. We did PYTP. We sold agricultural produce. What else do you need beyond that? So those are the foundation, the stepping stone for you to use to establish yourself. Think beyond the box. Yeah, I feel that's really important, to look inward and look at the immense possibility out there. When you get to see when you get admission from 100 level, you start thinking about the career possibilities. You graduate with a good grade. For anybody that's seeking employment, from the institution, international organization, and other private companies here, is very important. That is very important. So I'm sure that the audience out there must have taken some one or two things to be able to better their career, to be able to navigate that their career. So we have come to the end of the event. And if anyone, I'll just leave a space of 2 minutes for anyone that has any question to ask, because we've addressed, I think, two questions so far. Yeah. And if anyone has any question to ask, then we'll quickly take that out. But if there's none, I'll just quickly do a recap of what we've discussed. Do the vote of thanks and give the farewell. Then we can go about activities of the day. Thank you. I'm leaving 2 minutes. I think that would be all. No question. I believe that whatever question anyone asks, we've been able to address it. Or should anyone listen to the program in the event in the future, then it's sufficient enough to address whatever question anyone is having. And should you have any question that you'd like to ask later after the event is um, ended, you can always reach Dr. Badri. Always reach me. I would ask Dr. Badri to leave his contact if he's willing to leave that, maybe his email address or something, so you can always reach out to him here. So I'll just do a quick recap in a minute, then we say the vote of thanks that we end the event here. So we've been the theme of this event is to actually see the role extension can play in helping us to address our food insecurity and our food crisis. So we've been able to establish that indeed extension has a role to play. Indeed, extension is very important. We've been able to look at the key roles extension can play. We've been able to look at, the lapses of extension and all that, how to structure extension system to be able to meet the realities of food security. Yeah, so we've addressed that as well, and we've look at some of the extension approach that can actually be used, and we went to addressing the workforce as well, the skill force, how we can employ or how we can augment the workforce using some of our agricultural extension, agricultural students as well. So we finished off with actually helping people to understand the possibilities and opportunities in the sector, how they can better navigate it, putting out practical examples, practical insights and instances of some of the unique opportunities out there that could be leveraged here, and also mentioned the need for reorientation of our thinking, our idea, and also expanding our views beyond the shore of our field here. So I'm going to leave that for now, and appreciate Dr. Badru for for his presence, helping us to understand this issue. Like he has really addressed the whole issue very much. Made us understand some of the intricacies in the sector. Yeah. So I will leave it to Dr. Badru to to give us the final say, if he's willing to help us with his contacts here, then for us to reach him later. But before I hand over to him, I'm going to say to Dr. Badu, I really appreciate you for coming around. Honestly, I've learned a lot apart from being the moderator or being extension student in the past. I've learned a lot from this conversation, honestly, and I really appreciate that you did justice to the questions and to the topic. Thank you so much. So we can have the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much, Taib, for having me. One of the joy of a lecture is to see his products, flying high, succeeding, and I'm so glad to see that you are able to do this. Personally, this has been something I have been nursing in my mind to do. When I came to the department, I took over the role of coordinating the radio program for a long time before administrative work actually prevented me from doing it. So, and I've been thinking of doing something like this in my private capacity. So seeing you, about the first day you mentioned it to me that you'll be doing something like that, I was so happy, because it does not matter who does it. The most important thing is that the idea that you have in your mind is being implemented. And the moment I saw you doing it, I'm so happy about it. Now, to our audience, I want to appreciate them for being with us. I can see Amadou Palamusa Traore all the way from Mali, and Diallo, all of them that were my former students that they attended the program. So happy. I will continue to be in touch with all of you. Now, with respect to my contact, I think I don't have a hiding place. You know, when they talk about data breaches and what have you the other time, that it does not apply to those of us that are in academics, because every of our publications, you always see our email addresses there. It's just a matter of just getting your hands on any of our publications. You see our email addresses. You have our phone numbers. They are always there, and that is why when people call us, we don't know who is calling. We are always very, very skeptical because everybody has access to our contact information. Then the easiest way is for anybody that is here on what is on Facebook. At least I'm on Facebook. So my name, my page on Facebook is Idris Olabode Badiru. The moment you type it, you can get me. You can. My DM is not closed. You can always send me a chat through my inbox, and I will always reply. And if there's need for us to take the conversation further, probably using phone contacts and what have you, we can always share it via the inbox. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Badru. So I would hope that in the future, some of would have a more enlightening events when I, you know, send an invite. You always welcome it, and I also look forward to actually some of the things that we can actually do in the department, agricultural extension and University of Ibadan. To help the agricultural students or some of the activities that the department is doing. I'm looking forward to how I can play a key role in that. Looking forward to giving back in my own way. I'm not saying I'm really that big, but I can be a part of moving the.
You're big. You're big already.
I can be.
You have
I can
something
be a
to
part,
share.
okay, sir. I can be a part of moving the ministry and the gospel of agricultural extension forward. Yeah. Yes, sir. So I really appreciate your presence, and we look forward to having you next time. And do have a really
Thank you.
wonderful day, and for staying with us till this time.
Thank you so much.
Okay, for those still around, so that will be all. Yeah, I hope you are able to pick one or two things here. Uh, just to follow up with Dr. Badiru, for those that want to know me better, maybe those that joined the link that have been shared, and don't really know me that much, except those that know me from Facebook and they are, you know, familiar with me. My name is Toib Aziz. I'm popularly known as the Lasgidi Farmer. Yeah, I'm an extension agent and also farmer into value addition in the art of Lagos, cultivating catfish and all that. I'm very passionate about improving the livelihood of our smallholder farmers to actually help them to be productive and efficient in their production, because they produce bulk of our food here. So it makes sense that if we improve their livelihood, improve everything that affects their production, then there could be talks of food security, food efficiency, food that trickles down to everybody here. So that's one of the things that I'm passionate about. And if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on Facebook here, Toib Aziz in bracket the Last Giddy Farmer. I'm also on LinkedIn in the same name, Toib Aziz in bracket the Last Giddy Farmer, and I'm on Twitter as well, D and the letter D and Last Giddy Farmer. That's my username, and also on Instagram as the Last Giddy Farmer, Aziz Toib, and what you have it. So I run a weekly podcast, talking about agriculture, trying to enlighten people, sharing the opportunities in the sector, helping people to understand what exactly is going on in the sector, how they can make sense of it, how they can easily participate, trying to deconstruct everything to enable their easy understanding and participation in the sector here. So if any of that interests you or you are keenly looking into that, you can always follow me, always reach out to me. I have a dedicated page for this as well. My website, thelasgidifarmer.ng. Yeah, you can always reach out to that. You get to see many of my interesting articles, my videos, my interviews, and all that. Yeah, we have next week. I'll be having another event coming in. Is actually about the catfish. sector, we are trying to look at the comatose state of the catfish sector, trying to dissect it and find solution to it. Because the catfish is no, it's not the catfish. Sorry, the fishery and aquaculture sector rather. They are one of the sectors that help us to have cheap access to protein in developing physically and mentally to the appropriate level. Also generating employment, income to people, revenue to government, to run public activities and all that. So we'll be addressing that and trying to find solutions to it. And we also have another event coming up is agri-tech, navigating agri-tech career, because agri-tech is really becoming something big now that a lot of people are looking at how to infuse technology into agriculture to unlock the productivity of agriculture, and is creating unlocking a lot of opportunities for people to play. And a lot of people wonder how they can navigate this sector, so we'll be talking about that. For the fishery and aquaculture program, I'll be having it with Mr. Noridin Temitayo. That will be next week, Saturday. I would share the link as well. And for the agri-tech event, is actually with Femi, the flying farmer. That the event will be happening on Twitter, actually, Twitter space. I'll be sharing the link for those of us that are on Facebook, so we can access it and attend. Thank you so much. I bid you farewell. Thanks for joining my live event. See you next time.